Hello. So this evening we are going to take a look at the Captain Sim Lockheed C-130 Hercules in Microsoft Flight Simulator once again. This evening we're going to be looking at the autopilot and radio navigation and how the autopilot interfaces with the radio navigation kit on the aeroplane to fly around radio beacons and to do approaches. Okay, so if we go and have a quick look at the map, I'm in active pause at the moment, by the way, which is why the airplane isn't moving. So we are southeast of Edwards Air Force Base, and we're going to be using the Vortex station at Edwards on 11640 to navigate around just to show some of the guidance options available to us, and then we'll loop back in and come into the ILS and fly into Edwards. Okay, so if we come back to the simulator and jump into the cockpit, the autopilot controls in the Hercules are all in this central pedestal area. So I've created a couple of custom views to help us find our way around. So if I press one of them now, we've got like a close-up view here of all of the controls we need to talk about. We've got another view which shows the controls and the primary flight instruments over there. So we can see the reaction of what we're doing when we start playing with these controls. So what controls do we have? We have an autopilot master switch. So if you've got a button configured on your controller to turn the autopilot on and off, you will see this switch go up and down, and you will see this disengage bar move. So what this actually relates to, if you look down here, these are clutches on the control cables inside the aircraft, or the actuators for the control surfaces. So in very old aircraft, these would have been clutches that grab the cables, but in this version of the aircraft, or in something using hydraulics for the control surfaces, these would just be switches to the actuators, or servos. Okay, so in other words, when these are engaged, the autopilot has grabbed control of controlling the surfaces of, the control surfaces of the aircraft. So you've got the master switch, you've got an altitude control, that really means altitude hold. You've got your trim rollers here for the elevators. You've got a turn coordinator control, so you can twist this, and when you are in gyro pilot mode, so this is the mode of your autopilot, when you're in gyro pilot mode, the plane just completely obeys the trims, the altitude control, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so you can control the pitch of the aircraft with the elevator trims, you can control the turn rate of the aircraft with this huge roller up here, and you can control altitude hold by switching on altitude hold, basically. So what else can we do? Let's go and have a look at this mode controller. So it has several modes here. Blue left lock, I am reliably informed by an ex-C-130 pilot, is used for flying outbound on a localizer or inbound on a back course. Okay, so we probably won't have much use for that. Not in the simulator anyway. Not many airfields have back courses implemented. But anyway, we've got gyro pilot as well. So that's, as I've just explained, gyro pilot just simply follows whatever you have commanded here, and if you just switch it on when everything is centered up, the plane will just continue going on the direction it was going. So range localizer mode will capture a VOR, a localizer, or TECAN. Okay, an AFF is essentially approach mode. Yeah, so it will use the localizer and the glide slope. So let's go and have a play. If we go and sit in the pilot's seat and hit the pause button to unpause the simulator. So we'll come down here and we'll turn off the autopilot. So see, the engage bar came back and the altitude control switched off. So at the moment the aircraft was trimmed out, so it's still flying in a nice straight line, but it is going to start to fall one way or the other. You can see it's gently rolling right at the moment. Yeah, so we're flying to the southeast of Edwards and we're slowly tipping to the right. So if we go and I'll go to that view I talked about. If we go in here and we hit the on button for the autopilot, you can see the wings are leveling up. Yeah, so it will just do wing leveling, and that's because this is in the middle. Yeah, the only way of really knowing that for sure is that that screw aligns with that screw. There's no actual marker on this instrument to know which way round it is. If you want to hold altitude, you turn the altitude control on. Now we were in level flight anyway, but notice while this is on, these won't do anything. Yeah, this is the elevator trims. So if we go and turn this off, or pitch control I should say, not elevator trim. If we turn the altitude control off and we roll this, the aircraft will start to climb. Yeah, so you can get to the climb rate you want and just leave it. Obviously that's going to influence indicated airspeed, which you can't quite see from here. It's over there, look. So as we climb, that's going to slowly drop off. But when you've got to the altitude you want to be at, you can just flick the altitude control back on and you can see the aeroplane levels itself back out again. So by the same token, if we go over here, or we'll do it from here because we can watch the HSI in the distance. If we were to turn this 90 degrees right, all that really means is go to the maximum bank angle the autopilot will attain. So you'll see that happening up here, look. So the aeroplane has tipped over to the right and it's now rotating. Notice because altitude hold is on, it's trimming the elevators itself to maintain altitude during the turn. So it's doing a nice neat turn. So if we go and look from outside, you can see that happening. And we can leave it turning all day long. We could just continue orbiting on the spot if we wanted to. So looking at the map, you can see we're turning away. So if we come back in and fly a slight angle to the VOR, then we can have a talk about getting it to track the VOR instead of just whichever direction it's going. So in order to do that, we can go and play with the HSI. And we can turn our course, we can spin our course round. So we've got the little aeroplane there, so this is the direction it's going. If we want to find out the direction of the VOR, we spin the course round until the CDI needle is in the middle. So that means from where we are, and let's press active pause on this now. So from where we are in the world, it's saying it's about 295 degrees to the VOR station. We can verify that on the map. So if we measure this on the map, 296 degrees. I was 1 degree out. Yep. So that gives you an idea of how the navigation radio can be used. If you wanted to fly, let's take pause back off. If you wanted to fly a particular bearing into the radio beacon, you can just choose the course you want to fly into it, and then the CDI will reflect where you are in relation to that. So let's just pause that again while we're talking about it. Say we did want to fly 270 degrees into here. So if we draw a 90 degree line out, so if we go measure distance, we'll draw the opposite. Obviously 90 is the opposite of 270. So there's our line, our 270 degree line in. So from where we are on the map, it's saying the line is to the right of where we are. So we could continue turning. Yeah, so let's take it off pause and we'll let that happen. So remember, our course is 270, so we're wanting to be on that line, but let's do a shallower one, shall we? So if we did a line from here, so 295, let's go and get rid of that one, because it's a bit of a long way away and it would take ages for us to get over there. So let's stop our turn. And we want 295, don't we, on the course. So you can see we're coming up to it. So we need to be doing a left turn. Yeah, so if you see that on the map, we're just crossing over that 295 degrees. Now I'm not going to do the left turn, I'm going to let it fly straight through it. I'm not going to let it do it for a very good reason. We are going to switch the autopilot mode from gyro pilot to range localizer mode. Watch what it does. Notice the flight director has kicked left. So the flight director is telling the autopilot what to do. Now it's just saying maintain the turn. In other words, don't keep rolling left. So watch what happens on the map. So the aeroplane's turning left. Watch the flight director. The flight director is telling the autopilot what to do. Start rolling right. So it's straightening the aeroplane up. And now it's levelling it out, so it's saying stop rolling. So it's established an intercept course for the 295 degree radial into Edwards. Yeah, so our course is still it's 294, look, if we correct it by 1 degree. So it's going to do a very gentle turn to get into it. You can see exactly what it's doing. So it's just approaching the CDI now. So the CDI should come spinning in fairly soon. It's interesting, we're a bit too close to the beacon for this to be of any use. So you'll also notice there's a white triangle here. So as we approach the beacon, that will flip over to the other side. So that means basically we're going to the beacon. Once we go over the top of the beacon, we'll lose signal, and then that will go from the beacon. So if you watch it for a few moments, we must be right over the top at the moment. We're within a mile, look. So we're just approaching, and the direction to the beacon is spinning round to the other side. There we go, we've lost signal. We're right over the top of the beacon. Now we've regained signal. The white arrow has flipped. We're now travelling away from the beacon, but the autopilot will quite happily continue flying 295 degrees away from the beacon. Yeah? So we're still going 295 degrees. So if we measure this on the map, we're still following that course. Yeah, you can see it's getting closer and closer. So say we wanted to go to a different radial away from it. Say we wanted to go to 350 degrees, which would be there. Let's watch what happens. So we'll say, actually, yeah, we want to be going 350 degrees. So the autopilot is still in lock mode. Now, I think this is slightly unrealistic. I don't think it should be this clever. I think most aircraft of this era, you had to get the CDI within the nearest dot of the centre before the localizer would capture for the autopilot. Yeah? So I think this is actually giving you a huge reprieve, that you're not having to get it in the ballpark yourself before the localizer would be captured by the autopilot. Or sorry, before the VOR radial, I should say, in this case. In other aircraft I've seen that are realistic of this era, you had to get it nearby. It wouldn't perform these wonders for you. This is what this is doing, look. It's doing quite a steep turn, and then it will go on a more shallow turn to come back onto the course. So let's just extend that out a bit so we can see that happen. Yeah, so the aeroplane is just approaching the CDI, and the flight director is kicking in to tell it to approach it more and more gently until it attains the exact course. Here it comes, look. Okay, so let's turn this back round. We'll wait for it to straighten up, and then we'll come back in on an intercept course into the VOR station. So we'll want 195 degrees will be our final course. So before we do it, I'm just going to come off the throttles a little bit and let the airplane slow down so we get a sharper turn. So coming back down here, we're going to go back down to gyro pilot mode for the moment. So we're still in altitude hold. We're in gyro pilot mode now though, so the airplane's just going to travel in a straight line unless we command it to do a turn, which we're going to do. Yeah, so we're going to turn the plane around. We'll put 195 degrees while it's turning onto the course. Okay, there we go. So it's saying the beam is off to the left of us, which it is, if you look on the map. So we're going to carry on turning. We're just turning at the moment. We're not telling the airplane what to do. We're still going really fast, aren't we? Let's cut the throttle back. Let the airplane slow down. Okay, we're going to stop this turn now. Or at least slow it down. So we're just straightening that knob up. Keep an eye on this. Yep, so the airplane is now travelling towards the vector we want to be on. Okay, so you will notice as we get closer to the line, the CDI is creeping in. So all we need to do before we get too close to it, knowing we're already tuned in with the right course, we just change this to lock mode. And it's going to manage that final turn in and meeting the course automatically. Which is the more correct way to do it. You get it in the ballpark yourself using other modes, and then you put localizer mode on when you are nearly there. So this means we are going to the beacon. We've got the distance there, it's 8 miles away. So we're going to do an approach. So first things first, we need to find out the altitude of Edwards. So I'm just going to pull that up on here. So 2,300 feet. Now we are at 8,000 feet, so we need to drop. So that's why I was slowing down, being honest. So we're going to take off altitude hold. Let's do this from here. So altitude hold is off, and we can start descending. Yeah, so we're going to push the nose down and let the aeroplane descend quickly. So we'll do that in concert with watching the airspeed as well. And you can see the altitude falling off now. And we're gently accelerating. We've told the aeroplane to descend very steeply. Yeah, so you can see this happening. It's not so obvious from outside that we're descending so steeply, is it? We're coming down 1,500 feet a minute. We're coming in towards the beacon. Now, we'll need to change direction when we get here. Well, you can see the direction here, look on the ILS, to 226 degrees, and we'll need to change the frequency. So, the other thing we can do is go back to gyro pilot mode, let the airplane fly not fly itself, but just, stabilize itself, and that frees us up to go and change the frequency to 11010. One, 3, 2, 1. I think that's correct. Oh no, that's 2, 1. Okay, let's keep an eye on the altitude. We're coming down to 5,000. So I'm going to stop at 5,000 feet, with the altitude hold, which will put us underneath the end of the feathers, and I'll explain that in a moment. So if we go and put altitude hold on now, and increase the throttles to hold our speed. So the game I'm playing here, and again what we can do is switch the localizer on. The game I'm playing here, and 226 degrees, isn't it? So course 226. Sorry, I'm racing against the aeroplane and trying to explain things and running out of time. Oh, we're already above. Yeah, so we're going to loop around. Yeah, we're going to go back to gyro. I've run out of time to explain that and show it. I was hoping to do everything at once, and I can't. So what I'm going to do is loop us round, which gives us more time to talk. This just shows you how there's a term for this about what's the term they use for when pilots have too much to do in a given time and it causes them to get behind the aeroplane. So never fear going around and reorganizing, stabilizing what you're doing. It's saturation is the term that tends to be used. So we had too many things going on at once. So what I'm going to do is fly the reciprocal out away from the airfield. Yeah. So you can see what the reciprocal is, because we've got 226 on the course. So we're going to fix the gyro pilot, stop it turning. Just we can maintain a gentle turn just to get it straightened up on the reciprocal. So we're flying the opposite direction away from the runway, yeah? Just waiting for those last few degrees. If you want to expedite it, you can. So yeah, this is commonly called saturation, where you've got too many things going on at once. Obviously, I'm going a lot more slowly than I normally would with these things, because I'm having to explain at the same time, which delays me enormously. So we're now flying away from the runway, just in gyro pilot mode. So we're essentially manually controlling the aeroplane. Altitude hold is keeping us at 5,000 feet, and that was on purpose. The reason for that is because Edwards is at 2,300 feet. Yeah? A 3 degree, or this is a 2.5 degree glide slope. That's why I said it was below us. We need to be at about 2,300 feet by the time we get to the beginning of the glide slope, based on it being a 2.5 degree glide slope. So at 8 miles out, most ILS feathers are shown as 8 miles on a chart. So at 2.5 degrees, 8 miles, you're looking about 2,300 feet above ground level. So that comes into play, look. So we want about 5,000 feet, but which we're at the moment. Then we come back in and you'll see we are now, you can see it now, look, we're below the glide slope. We're far enough away now to be below it. So let's turn ourselves back around, just using gyro pilot at the moment, but then we're going to switch on AFF mode, which means the autopilot will try to capture the localizer and the glide slope. So I've never done this in the simulator with this aircraft. What should happen in most other aircraft in approach mode is they will maintain altitude until they cross the glide slope, and then they will start descending. If this climbs into the glide slope, I will laugh out loud. So we're just about to cross the centre line, look. So if we look over here, we can see, look, we've just crossed that line. If you were to project that out, we've just crossed it. So we'll stop the aeroplane turning so much as we come in. We'll put ourselves on an intercept course at least. So let's see how clever this is. We're going to go for AFF mode. So watch the glide slope and watch the vertical speed. When we hit the glide slope, expect the vertical speed to drop. There it goes. So the aircraft is tracking the glide slope and the localizer. So it's going to fly itself down to the runway. So at this point, all we have to do is manage airspeed and obviously the configuration of the aeroplane. So we'll work on slowing the aeroplane down, and we get to watch it from outside. Can extend the wheels. Begin extending flaps. the landing lights over here. And the lights have just extended and come on. So we're just managing airspeed and flaps now. So just gently controlling the configuration of the aircraft. The autopilot is tracking the glide slope and the localizer. It's very cool. I'm surprised how well it worked. But then I think I tend to think this aeroplane is actually doing too much, and it's helped. As we saw, we were able to capture a signal from a vortex station when we were way off axis from or way off the vector that we wanted to be on. Normally you have to get the CDI within the nearest dot for them to work, or for the autopilot to capture. Okay, let's just slow us down a bit more. So we're looking for about 120 knots in the Hercules as far as I'm aware. So look at it changing the pitch as we change the configuration of the aeroplane. So it's maintaining the glide slope even with these configuration changes. So the glide slope has dipped below us, look. We've gained lift from the control surface changes as I've extended flaps. So now I can just use the throttles to maintain 120 knots. We're on full flaps. So we can come outside and watch it come in. So obviously in the real world you do not fly the aeroplane into the ground. It doesn't have auto land. So you would get within a couple of 100 feet of the ground and disengage the autopilot and land it yourself. You get to a decision height. So you can see the radar altitude is ticking down here. So even if you had zero visibility, you still wouldn't let it go all the way to the runway. So obviously we can take over any time we like, really. But notice this is particularly true of Edwards in the simulator. The ILS may not be perfectly aligned with the runway. They're not always. So I'm disengaging the autopilot and I'm taking over. And we'll just take it down to the runway now. Obviously we can carry on following the beam and we can look at the PAPI lights over there. So it's saying we're too low at the moment. We want 2 whites and 2 reds. There we go. We just gently come down and we're down. We've got reversers as well. So just engage the reversers and the speed's coming off. And then we can go to wheel brakes. So there you go. I think there were several interesting things we saw during that video. I think the most important one that's a really good lesson for everybody is that whole saturation problem where I was trying to fit too much in. But obviously if you don't know an aeroplane well in the simulator, it's so common to see people getting way behind the aeroplane. If that happens, just level out, turn around, come back. Yeah? Or if you're flying with VATSIM or something, you would just announce a go around and they would give you vectors. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that. So we'll just do a little bit of a recap of those modes on the autopilot just to explain them again. So I'm going to pull this up, just get off the runway, out of the way. Okay, so just to recap, you've got the master autopilot control, which you can obviously map to a button on your controls. You've got altitude hold. You've got the mode of the autopilot, and of the modes, you've got AFF, which is essentially approach mode, where the autopilot will track the localizer and the glide slope. You've got range localizer mode, where the aircraft will only track laterally to a beacon. You've also got gyro pilot mode, so in other words, the aeroplane will just, without you deflecting any of these controls, it will just fly in a straight line. Or if you use the trim controls, you can change the attitude of the aircraft in gyro pilot mode within limits. It won't continue descent, it won't dive you into the floor, it will just do a gentle descent, but it will do it according to how much you have rolled the control wheel there. And then you've got blue left localizer mode, which as far as I understand was only used for flying outbound away from a beacon, or sorry, away from a runway on the localizer, or inbound on a back course. Okay? So, as I said, there aren't many airfields in the simulator that support back courses, but it's there if you wanted to try and find one and have a go at that. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you all again soon.